Ciao from Syracuse to Sicily. Today we're going to talk about cultural perspectives. We often don't realize that we don't see the world and its events objectively, but through perspectives, or as I call them, lenses, that are often dictated or guided by not just our personalities, but the cultures that we've grown up in. The Duomo in Syracuse is a sort of metaphor for this. Looking in this direction, I see a Greek temple. Its columns now embedded in the wall, but the Greek structure still visible. Looking this direction, I see a Roman Catholic church with its Baroque facade and religious statues. And looking this direction, I see an Islamic mosque with the scallop detailing along the top. In fact, it is all three. Constructed first by the Greeks in the 5th century as a temple of Athena, then converted to a church by the Byzantines in the 6th century, then used as a mosque by the Arabs in the 9th century, and finally reinstituted as a Catholic church in the 12th century by the Normans, with a Baroque facade added after an earthquake in the 17th century. So this one single place looks like different things, depending on your perspective, what you're paying attention to, what you expect to see. Our cultural perspectives work in the same way, acting like lenses that direct our focus, pointing our attention to certain things and providing frameworks for interpreting our experiences. We actually have many cultural influences, not just our national one, but our linguistic, religious, age, gender, profession, and more. These perspectives, these lenses, are grounded in values, as well as firsthand experiences, observations of others in our culture, and adages and advice that we receive. For example, I might have a religious cultural value that encourages me to be generous, and a national cultural value that encourages hard work and discipline. And I might have a first-hand experience of being scammed by someone on the street. So I might not give money to someone on the street, which could look like being uncharitable, but later give canned goods to a food drive. Similarly, other cultures will have different values and approaches that guide the way they respond in different situations, what they think will happen, and how they interpret events and interactions. However, it's important to realize these values and approaches are deep-seated. They're often subconscious. We interpret and react quickly based on our cultural influences, but we don't necessarily attribute it to our cultures. This is because we may not even realize we have cultural perspectives. We expect that the way that we interpret things and the way that we behave is a universal way, that the meanings that we have, the intentions we have, are universally understood. When we interact in our own culture, the people around us reinforce our interpretations and expectations, and we continue to model the same behaviors. It's often only in crossing cultures that we begin to realize that not only are there different behaviors, but sometimes there's different interpretations for the same behavior. It's not always easy to approach this in a way that's non-judgmental, because our own culture has reinforced to us certain ways that are polite and certain ways that are rude. But today I'm going to explain my model, Change Your Lens, which will help you learn how to identify what your expectations are for interactions, to understand the way it filters and influences the way you think, and to help you learn how to see another point of view. This is important because we live in a world today where it's inevitable that we'll interact with people of other cultures. Sometimes we seek out these opportunities, and sometimes they come to us. Sometimes the interactions are positive, but sometimes they're negative. But they likely all have some component of difference that we can unpack. A difference in approach, a difference in style, a difference in value. It's this difference that marks it as an intercultural experience. This difference might be glossed over, or it might be a stumbling block. But in any case, it's an opportunity for learning. And the Change Your Lens model is an easy and memorable way to help with that learning. In any interaction, we have expectations for what will happen. We have mechanical expectations, like how we'll greet one another or take turns, and we have expectations for the purpose, what we'll get from the interaction, whether it's camaraderie, a sale, or some action to follow. But we have to have a lot of shared meaning for this to go smoothly. That shared meaning comes from shared cultures and shared communication norms. When we interact across cultures, any of these components may not be shared. So I developed an approach to help us understand how our own lenses influence our expectations so that we can work through differences rather than judging them. So let's take a look at how this works. When you have an encounter with someone from another culture, you may react in negative ways, such as judging them for their actions and behaviors that seem rude to you, becoming frustrated with them when there are confusions and misunderstandings, avoiding them based on negative feelings, and attributing negative aspects to them. When this happens, this is a clue for you to stop and change your lens. L. Look objectively and list what happened. This means recognizing any evaluative or judgmental words that you're using and to tell the incident from a more neutral or objective point of view. For example, instead of saying someone is rude for ignoring you, you might just simply say that they're not paying attention to you. Or you might say more specifically, I'm in a restaurant and the waiter is not coming over to check on me. The idea here is to separate behaviors from interpretations, to just look at the actions and not layer on the expectations of what you have ingrained in you. E. Examine your assumptions and explore inside. Now in this step, we are going to look at those assumptions. What did you expect was going to happen and why? What about your behavior seems right or normal and why? In other words, we want to move beyond simply saying, well, it's just polite to do that. Why is it polite? What is the value or the rationale that this behavior signals to you? So you might say, I believe that waiters should check on their customers regularly so they can finish their meal quickly and get on with their day. This might help you then identify a value of punctuality and timeliness and efficiency. In the E step, you're really just examining your own cultural assumptions. You're not yet thinking about the other culture's assumptions or the other person's perspective. N. Note other possibilities and nudge yourself to grow. Now in this step, we are going to begin thinking about the other culture's perspective. What are other possibilities for interpreting this behavior? I add nudge yourself to grow because it's important to think about this in a positive way, to assume the other person has positive intentions and is trying to be polite, or at least appropriate in their culture. So when you note other possibilities, you want to do more than just say, well, I guess they don't care about XYZ value, or they don't care about being polite. Of course they care about being polite. All cultures care about politeness. All cultures, all people need politeness for society to run smoothly. But politeness can look different. So what makes this polite to them? What rationale or value are they using? You might look around and see how they interact with one another, or think about ways that this value makes sense, is expected in this setting. And really, you don't even have to have a complete answer yet. The point of this step is to nudge you, to push you, to consider that there are other points of view, and to respect and value that. And finally, S. Strategize what else you want to learn and seek out more. Now in this step, you'll want to follow up on the ideas that you generated in N. See if you can make sense of what's going on by talking to locals or reading about it, finding some way to learn more. I leave this step to the end because hopefully in working through the E step, exploring your own assumptions, and the N step, nudging yourself to think about other possibilities, you've come to a place of open-mindedness, of consideration, of respect for other perspectives. This should put you in a place of being more genuine in asking questions of locals, showing real curiosity. When you approach things from a more positive, open perspective, you're more likely to have positive interactions where people share more genuinely with you, where you can find that real connection. The idea here is to seek out more in a complex and nuanced way. So instead of coming at the situation from a negative or a judgmental way, like, why do you do this? It's so strange or rude. You come at it from openness. I'm curious about. Could you explain more about? This is what I think might be going on, but I want to learn more so that I can behave in a way that's respectful and appropriate. You might also ask questions not just about this specific scenario, but other scenarios. Does this behavior translate to other situations? Or the flip, how would they signal frustration with someone? What is considered rude behavior? Let me share some examples from my students about how this model can work.
So we were eating at a restaurant, and basically we finished eating, and we were ready to pay. But the waiters didn't come up to us like American waiters do, so we didn't know how to pay.
In the American dining culture, we believe that the waiter should check upon us every 5 or 10 minutes to make sure we're doing good, and we also believe that a check should be brought to us to the table. This is because we value time, and we also think this is a fair thing to do, as we are going to provide the waiters with a tip, so it should be their responsibility to check upon us and bring us the check at the end.
For the end, we have another possibility could be that they were very busy with work, so they could have been giving us extra time to finish our food and not be bothered by a constant pressure of the waiter. All right, so we had a good conversation with Luca, and his ideas were very surprising between the ideas of Italian culture and American culture when it comes to sitting at the table and ordering food and getting the check.
So Luca basically told us that he wants us to take their time, customers take their time. He wants to see us as eating, and he wants to be patient as a server. So he doesn't want to intrude like American cultures do. They like to intrude all the time, check up on people. Italian culture, they don't do that. They just wait until you're ready.
In Italian culture, they value more quality time and also giving you your space and time. While the U.S. is more fast-paced and it's more rushed, so it's kind of a little bit different.
The Change Your Lens process allows you to analyze, empathize, and realize new understandings, new interpretations, and new connections. Thank you for taking time to think about how your lens influences the way you think and behave, and being open to changing your lens to learn about others.